Welcome to Second Lap. It's Gramps, your host. I am not walking today. This is a special series that I want to say I dreamt up or I sort of synthesized in my head that I wanted to talk about and wanted to talk about with a good friend of mine. Before I bring Patrick out, we wanted to have a opportunity to discuss friendships, especially when it comes to being, an adult and having adult friends where you're not forced into, like at school or, say even in the military, into an area where you're sort of like cattle stuck with other people of similar age, and sort of forced to get along. If your desire is to have good friendships, and I think Patrick's and mine fits that description, which is why I invited him to have this conversation. I think there are some things that we'd like to just either point out or, as I'm gonna steal his thunder, as we peel back the onion, there will be things that I think that you could do and have, the best opportunity for success on the other side. Could you bring out Patrick and we'll see if I've mispitched any of this.
Hey, everybody. What's going
Hey,
on?
welcome. What do you think? Is our special bond? Can we repeat it? Can we find a special seasoning that we could give others to give them, or as you and I've talked about, sort of the layers of effort and things of that nature that we were going to talk through? Is it something that sometimes it's just magic?
I mean, I would undoubtedly say there's an element of something that can't be explained through effort or proximity or shared experiences. But I do feel like, when those opportunities come, if you don't put some effort into it, that can fade away. So I think that initial spark, like what makes you want to be a friend with somebody, I think there's a little bit of magic in that. Now, what you do with that spark, I think, is where some of those other things come into. But I don't think you can manufacture the spark. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, I appreciate that. The spark actually makes sense. The ignition, the kickoff. Um, in our case, I was going to say this, the thing we talked about was sort of explaining, hey, why would you want to spend any time listening to these two guys babble on about friendship? I thought it would be real, give a quick bio of who and how we became friends. We became friends. I don't know if you remember the exact year. I do. I looked it up. 1992, 34 years ago. I was approximately 20 years old, and you were 22. I believe I just keep adding a two
Yeah.
to the age, and we met in the military.
Yes. Yep. We
We
were in the same squadron in the Navy. So our squadron of airplanes that we worked on, we were stationed in the same squadron.
Exactly. We were in Lemoore, California. I believe I actually got there when you guys were going around the Horn. I've looked at this because I got there to the squadron. It was temporarily assigned, or TADs they call it, to something. I don't even remember what it was until you guys got back, and you guys got back with the squadron, and we met. And I don't know if I would call that the spark, because that's sort of how we became aware of each other. I would say that through the early stages, and I'd let you color in any of the lines that I blur here, but through the early stages, we found that we were in the same MOS, as some people call it, or rating, as other people call it. Aviation electronics technician, or AT, is what we were referred to in the Navy. We were both one of those at the time that we met. So there was that sort of, hey, there's a reason for you guys to be together.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then shared music and likes, and getting out of the squadron when we were in sort of foreign ports, and getting some food, and I don't want to say pretending we weren't in the Navy, but getting away from the guys that really enjoyed the
Yep.
white Dixie cups.
Absolutely. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, it's a little bit of a miracle that we became such good friends because if memory, like you were married at the time when you arrived, and if
Yes.
memory serves, other married women in the squadron advised your wife to not let you hang out with me. Am I
There was I mean, we didn't have the internet the way it is today, and there wasn't Facebook the way it is today. We were talking 1992 here, but there was either lore or like a scroll. There was a scroll of, hey, these are the guys that are bad for your relationships, and you were on that list.
I'm amazed. Like I don't think I was ever like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it still surprised me to this day that I made this list because I don't feel like I never was a guy that was out, drinking too much or doing any of that stuff. So I mean, it amazes me. But when you told me that, I kind of laughed because it was like, that it didn't come from other guys in the squadron. It came from the wives of guys in the squadron. So
Personally, years of therapy, books, learning perspective, I think there is a fear of somebody that has got confidence. And you were a man that, even at 22 and me being 20, was confident in what you were capable of and you were as a human. And I think that scared the shit out of the people that didn't have that kind of confidence. But that's
I
just
wish
my
I wish I knew as much
opinion.
now. I wish I knew as much now as I thought I did then. Like I feel like I've lost confidence as I've gotten older.
I think that it's just the shared life experiences we were talking about earlier, and just realizing how small we are. I think it sort of dampers that, or gives you a little bit of tampering on the ego, so to speak. So I would then say we watched you depart the Navy. Your next steps was to go to college. I got out of the Navy, did a little bit of the college, and as you said, I was already married and had two children. I then, I believe, attended and participated in your wedding,
Yes.
of who you're still married to today. So we, as you said, sort of the ebb and
30
flow
year
of.
anniversary this year. 30 years.
Congratulations. You're
Thanks.
welcome. I'm going to say I'm a lucky token. I'm a driven dragon. I put this shirt on for you. I wanted to get to, sort of one of those stages, but congratulations, sincerely. We were there again. I remember this distinctly, I think it was, going and seeing the first of the Fast and the Furious movies with you during the time of that, and watching the kids peel out in the parking lot, and just like we were old souls already. But anyways, another stage. So then, as you said, we continued to stay in touch. You had children, you moved to California. We met back up in California. You were working a different industry at the time. I would say that, it was, maybe a couple of days had gone by, no more than a week, and we were just like right back into it. And I don't know, self-deprecating humor and jokes, and back to where, it was
Yep.
like we were walking through Hong Kong together. And then I think it was the next time we talked, you were, hey, I'm thinking about moving back to Ohio, be close to my parents.
Yep. So yeah, it's been that you just summed up about 30 years in in a couple minutes. But yeah, I think it was but throughout all that, I think we stayed and I wouldn't say we stayed in touch weekly or maybe even monthly, but we always kind of stayed in touch with each other, which when you think about it is really significant because back then, early when I got out of the Navy in '93, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have the internet. So there was, you had to be intentional about staying in contact with somebody. It wasn't as easy as becoming Facebook friends and occasionally seeing their posts and liking their posts or whatever. You know, and at that time, I remember one time Cammie and I came and visited you in Oregon at your house in Oregon at Camas, Oregon, if I remember correctly. So there used to be more effort required to stay in touch with somebody than there is now because people moved, their phone numbers changed. You know, if you moved Texas from Portland to Texas, you didn't have the same phone number because you didn't
Right.
have so there took some, whether that was writing a letter, whatever that was, it took some effort to make that happen, which now, like I said, I've reconnected with people from 30 years ago since the advent of Facebook. But in that interim, like nothing. I had no idea what was going on in their lives. So
Well, and I think my thesis is, it's like the kids that grew up before this, or we were the kids that are the bridge years. I can't remember. Are we Generation X? I think is what they call us, right?
I
We
think I
we've
think I think we're towards the end of Generation X. If I don't know. I don't know all the dates, but we're the younger ages of Generation X, I believe. Maybe.
we are we are. My bride is 6 years older than I am, and she is also an X. And so you're right. We're at that lower end, but I think we've experienced it, and what I'm hoping you and I are portraying to those that do have social media and have stayed in touch through the easier methods that there are to either track down or relocate someone that's gotten married and has a different name, or has moved across the country as you've described. The effort that we had to put in back in the 90s to stay abreast, to stay in the know, to stay in communication, that level of effort is still required. Like, you still
Yeah.
need to go above and beyond, like me liking one of your posts and putting some snarky little comment
Yeah.
in the comments. There's a when you and I get on the phone, and I hope I'm not going to embarrass this, because I do know even my own children that just text, even the oldest, she's 36 years old, and like, you don't leave a voicemail for her because she doesn't check it.
Yeah.
But you and I get on the phone and we'll talk for an hour and a half. And like, we're
Yeah.
we're we're getting off the phone for 20 minutes because there's like one
Yeah.
more thing we want to talk about. Like, there's a level of effort that still is required. And that's what I guess I wanted to preach or share as you and I were
Yeah.
talking, that's, and I think you said it this year or maybe last year when you even made, hey, I want even to intentionally have more of a monthly cadence with you, because it is something we're watching people of our age that are expiring, that are no longer with us.
Yeah.
It's not, nothing's guaranteed.
Well, I think that there are a lot of good things that came with technology and the internet and, specifically platforms like Facebook and things like that in the effort that I'm sure you would agree. Like I've made connections with people that I had lost contact with. However, I feel like, you know, there's also an element of because you occasionally see their post on Facebook and you like it or you comment, that somehow that is a substitute for actual real communication and really touching base. So you think that you're friends with somebody and that you're staying up on what their kids are doing and things like that. But
Right.
you're really not like at a core level, like having a solid friendship with somebody. You're keeping up with what's going on in their life. And I think that there are so many positives that have come with the internet and those type of platforms. But when I look, I feel like do we sometimes substitute, like significant or important type of conversations and relationships with just like it's quick and easy. I liked their post. I commented and said congratulations on their kid getting into so and so school or whatever. And I've checked the box that I have had communication with Rob. But that's not really communication, not one that's going to keep a friendship strong.
It's a, like, in a CRM world, You guys can go Google that. Patrick and I've been around. It's a birthday reminder. It's a anniversary reminder. It's a touch point that is obviously important and does something that you can, as you said, give a positive reason to have social
Yeah.
media. But it doesn't, like, when I get an alert on Facebook from you or Ronnie, who produces the show, or one of the other people that I consider a friend, I generally don't do the Facebook, hey, happy birthday, and then emoji post or whatever. I go out of band, I send you a text message, and I'm like, happy
Yeah.
birthday. And when you respond, it triggers me to send you this paragraph of vomiting on you of, hey, I
Yeah.
saw this and I wanted to talk to you about that. And hey, we did the V Friends thing. Did you see what Gary said? And I've got like this thing
Yeah.
that we then have this whole other conversation, but I'm leveraging social media as a way to
Yeah.
be
Absolutely.
positive, right? But not in
And
a, hey,
and
I
I
checked the
love to
box.
see. I actually love to see, what's happening with friends, children, and things like that. So I'm not saying there's anything negative against about it, but I'm saying that's not what you can rely on to keep a friendship strong. And I think I have a box in my basement still to this day of when we were in the Navy, there was no internet, there was
Right.
no email, things like that. So people actually, believe it or not, took a pen and a piece of paper and actually wrote letters and put a stamp on them and send it to people.
I
Yeah.
still write
So
notes.
no, I'm not even saying about writing notes. I'm saying literally, writing a letter, addressing it, and sending it to somebody. I still have a box of letters downstairs that I've kept. And it's like, you think about that, that's 30 years on. Like, why would I still have? Because there's something more significant about the fact that somebody sent me a letter when I was in the Navy or something like that. Some of them, my dad sent me one, and my dad wasn't one to do a lot of communication. Most of it came from my mom. And I view that letter as very significant because, my dad took the time to write it. I had a friend the other day that sent me a text that they were going through some stuff, and they sent me a screenshot of a letter I sent them actually when I was going around the horn, and I stopped in Argentina, and Argentina was getting ready to change their currency to a new currency.
Right.
So I literally sent them a couple of the bills that were going to soon be pulled out of circulation. And they sent me a picture of my letter with, they still have the bills I sent them and everything like that. And I'm like, we kind of, and I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but with regard to clothing, with regard to a lot, we've become a disposable society. Like, your Facebook post lasts as long as it is till three more drive it down the chain. We don't
Yep.
buy clothes, we don't buy boots now that can be resold and you own them for 20 years. We don't. TVs are like 3-4 years, and then it's like worth zero and you're getting the next new we it's not just friendships, but we've created a society to where everything is so fast moving. There's nothing to like. That was so impressive to me that this person saved the letter, saved the bills I sent them, and still has it 30 years later. Because I'm like, what exists in today's society that is comparable to that?
I think it's still doing the same thing. It's still taking the time to write somebody a letter and to put a stamp on it or put it in a package and send a care package. I love getting, I do a lot of the V Friends, like trading cards and things
Yeah,
like that. And so they'll send you one, and inside it, there's these little trinkets and there's a note they've written. And I think why we appreciate it so much, and I'm just hypothesizing and I'm putting words in your mouth, so
yeah,
please fire back. We realize we've been through that event in our life. We
yeah,
realize that we only have one life, and because I'm a big and guy as opposed to a but, and we realize that our best and most expensive asset is our time. Like you and I taking the time to do this, I would hope somebody would look and say, hey, this conversation's important to these guys. They're taking time out of their day to
Yep.
have this conversation. And that's not what's not what not has changed. It doesn't sound right. What's
What's
not
not
changed?
change?
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
not changed is I have the same thing. I have letters and I have a box with my military outfit, like my dress blues, and there's notes and letters and things in there and cards and same kind of thing. It's like somebody took the time. I was important enough to them to take the time to do it, like you said, your dad, to go put a stamp and take the time because you had, it wasn't so easy. You couldn't just print a thing and drop it in a box. It took a level
No,
of
and
effort.
it takes effort. Like I could have a 5 minute conversation with you on the phone that takes no effort at all, and it'd be amazing if it ends at 5 minutes. But to get the same amount of thoughts down on a piece of paper, you're talking several handwritten pages, and it's so to me, I feel like it took, like you said, it took some effort, and I feel like I agree with you that there's some things that are would be similar, but I do feel like we've lost like I agree if you do those things, like if you send letters, I still think there's value there, but I feel like that's a foreign concept to our kids to actually
I
write
do.
a letter and put a stamp on it, and like that's just you know um and again, I feel like with all the advances, as I talk to a lot of people in the course of my work and things like that, and I realized so many people, especially of generations younger than us, don't have. I'm very fortunate and blessed to where, including yourself, and we recently lost a guy that we served with. But I could count on. It would take me more than one hand to count the number of friendships I have that are over 30 years old and still relatively strong. I find as I talk to younger generations that is no longer the case. That's an extreme anomaly that somebody would have friendships. And I think, again, I can't distill it all down, but I think as we become more of a fast moving, everything is transitionary or disposable, I think that some of those things have just, look, think about this 20 years ago, you know, and this showing our age, used to be that the whole front area of our house would be covered with Christmas cards at Christmas. Everybody sent Christmas. We sent
Yeah.
Christmas cards. We would spend a couple days sitting there and not just sending out a generic with a card that you picked up and put a stamp on it, but
Right.
literally for each person putting some meaningful sentences down specific to them. Might take a couple evenings after work to pull, to
Yes.
send out 60 or 70 Christmas cards. Like we still get Christmas cards, but it's 25% of what it used to be. And
Yes.
I'm guilty too of a lot of times now just finding a card I really like and sending it out to people, but not really spending the time to personalize it and things like that. And I'm like, so, even I have been, but it's like I look at now, like how many Christmas cards we had this last Christmas. It's like 15 or 20, and it used to be 60 to 80
Yep.
20
I
years
think
ago.
I think the same thing. I think hey, we want to save on paper, but I think it's exactly what you said. It's a level of effort, it's time. People aren't putting the time, they're
Do
not
you really
doing
think people aren't sending it because they want to save on paper? I mean, come on. I
I
can't
was
imagine that's
I
really the
I
reason.
I was being snarky. I
Okay.
I think it's really they're not wanting to, as you said, they don't have 3 nights that they feel like they can dedicate to doing that. I think back to I think we've done some where I do like 3 or 4 cards that are inappropriate that I send to my close friends that they get. And so I do things that once again takes time to do it. But I want to wrap this up because I think there's other things that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I think the writing letters, especially in a day of I'm a sales guy, you're a marketing guy, people are doing all these AdWords and they're doing boongoggles and email lists and they're buying all this shit. Write a letter handwritten. You can do chat gpt to make sure that you do all the correct grammar or whatever,
Yep.
but write it on a piece of paper, fold it up, put it in an envelope and lick your stamp. The guy that opens that is it's going to be the one or only that he gets. He will remember you. Nobody
Yep.
is doing this anymore. So that's the
I'll just tell
tidbit I
you,
guess we're giving you.
I'll wrap this up with one last story. Not that long ago, one of the companies I worked with, large corporation. By that I mean 500 million a year in revenue.
Okay.
And I was friends with the CEO, still friends with the CEO, but he was making some changes, and some of them weren't necessarily popular. And I sent him a card, not even a letter, like a stationary card. And I just said, hey, I'm not going to say his name or whatever, but I just said, hey, I think what you're doing is really a positive move. And I know you're probably catching a lot of resistance, but stay the course. I think you're moving in the right. And, I just wanted to tell you that, I think what you're doing is the right thing. And sent it to him. And this is a guy that has probably 1,200 employees that are underneath him.
Right.
I went to visit him 3 months after I sent that card. And right next to his desk in his fairly sizable office, there's a bulletin board with pictures of his wife, kids, whatever. As I walk in, I see my card tacked to his bulletin board. And I thought to myself, I didn't make a big deal, but I thought to myself, I'm like, there's still, when somebody takes the time to do something, I think it has a bigger impact. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying I was impressed with a guy that's got this many irons in the fire, this many things, that he's juggling, that me literally sending him 4 sentences on a piece of stationery and dropping it in the mail is now tacked to the board next to his desk. So
It's meaningful if you take the time and you truly care. And some of this is, and I said we were going to curb that. I wanted to talk about. I mean, there needs to be a level of desire to have a friendship. Like, I guess I would define that as a mutually beneficial relationship between two humans that mostly is non-sexual, is just a hey, this is something that it gives us an opportunity to feel empathy, to feel compassion. These are all words that are important to understand, and you will grow to understand them. Understand perspective, like you're feeling something, I want to ask lots of questions to make sure that what I'm hearing you say is what you're actually saying to me. So being a friend is wanting to actually take the time. This is a bullet for the quiz later. Take the time to listen, to understand, as opposed to listening to respond. Like, I'm not sitting here waiting for a break in what you're saying so I can get what I need to say back out at you. I'm waiting for you to finish with your thought. And then it's like, well, he's curious about this. So then I like to, once again, another quiz question, enter every conversation as if you're curious and you actually don't know shit about what you're talking about, as opposed to trying to show that you know everything is going on and
yeah,
that you're the smartest person in the room.
no, absolutely. I mean, I agree on every point that you made. I think that we this whole conversation is about friendships and building deeper friendships. And I think you hit on a point right there that I think is important, that I think you don't really I would say that I don't think you can really genuinely build a strong relationship with somebody. I think those elements, when you're listening and really allowing them to communicate with you, and you know um I think that's what starts that's like the iron that begins to forge that friendship. Like when somebody feels like you're really listening and you're not listening to respond, but you're listening to understand. I think that's some of the glue or some of the iron that begins to build a friendship. I think when you think about the people that you know that are listening to respond and this they want to tell you how much they know about things. I don't think those would be people you would typically list in that small group of your best friends. So I mean,
Well,
again, it's
it
a
doesn't. They don't
guess.
check the box. They are missing a component, and through counseling and therapy, maybe if there's an interest, they'll grow into it. But you're right. If it's, and I think that's back to the beginning where I said some of it's magic, like some of it's, and I say that purely from I can't explain it, not that
Well,
I
and
have got a
here's the
hat.
thing: there's got to be that initial magic because, and I'm gonna just sound like a total tool when I say this. So, um,
Be
if I'm
vulnerable.
not, if I don't, if that magic doesn't exist and I'm not interested in you, I'm probably not going to listen as attentively as I like the people that I truly like. I'm there. There's something there that I want to get to know this person better. I mean, all those like think about, and again, this is the normal nature of things, but hopefully, like if you were to talk to my what, I mean, think about when you're courting somebody what starts to forge that relationship and you're really listening to the other person, you're really like listening to respond and understand and things like that. Now as you get older, sometimes it's like, and you've been married for a while, sometimes you lose a little bit of that. But when you think about that glue that originally like forms that relationship and really makes it deep, it's you're really interested in the person, and because of that you want to know more, you're interested, you want to ask more questions, you want them to talk more than you talk. And it's like, I know when I was back in my dating ages, if I went out on a date with somebody and all they did was talk about themselves, that was probably going to be their last date with that person. I was like, it just was like, hey, it's been a nice evening, see you later. So I think there's something to what, but there is that initial magic of like what creates that attraction. Why do you want to know more about that person? Things like that. Why do you want to be friends with that person? And then I think there's some effort that goes into some of the other things, but it doesn't feel like effort because if the magic is there, you want to know more about them. You want to like understand them.
I I agree. I agree. I was going to say I would love to relate this as we're doing this to the younger generations that I see. I see people that join NFT projects and they're part of a community and there's a Discord and they're in there and they're preached to about how they need to be part of this community and be friends with the people. And being friends means not selling and letting the floor rise and this sort of archaic greed that drives this thing. The communities that I see thriving, the people that I see friendships blossoming, they go in, they get into either a group chat where there's 5 to 25 other people, and it's like-minded people as you and I've been discussing. They have a desire to spend more time in this smaller group, asking questions, trying to understand, sharing their experience, letting the other people know they're not the only one that feels like they've eaten a turd that day. Like it's shared experience. It's creating it, and it's
Yeah.
doing exactly what you and I talked about, which is giving more time and a more level of effort to have a friendship as opposed to just being somewhere and trying to be a financial benefit to somebody else. And so that's another one of these things that kicked off the reason why I wanted you and I to have these conversations, because we are here currently. I'm trying to show, I'm wearing a V Friend shirt.
Yeah.
Part of the story that 30 years later that you didn't talk about was we met up in 2022. We went to VCon together. We reblossomed. We rode the slide down, and I'm not going to make the song that the dog has because it'll get stuck in your head. Are you
You
hearing it
mean
yet?
I remember the Rare Robot song. Now you got that stuck in your
Yeah,
head.
there. That's what I was trying to. I was hoping that you'd bring it up. So now we're on the slide in the Rare Robot song that you won't be able to
Yeah.
get out of your head for the rest of today.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to at least have it go through
Oh,
your head
I
once.
remember it. I remember
Yeah.
it.
These are all in the NFT community. There's Mendez, there's Tweaks, there's Gabe. There, you met Gabe at
Yep.
2023. He did a drinking thing. I haven't drank in 10 years, but you were able to benefit from that NFT purchase. The point I was trying to make, and I'm going to distill the ADD back
Yep.
down. Everything still takes time. Everything is still a level of effort, and to really benefit and to gain what you see frickin' frack here or us, good friends here talking. And the reason that we wanted to share this is have a desire, be curious, listen to, sort of understand,
Yep.
be, there, share things, be vulnerable. I said that earlier, but be willing to, get egg on your face if necessary. People they don't want to be the only one. Like, as much as that we've been
No.
preached to
Yeah.
be unique, we don't want to be the only one.
No, and I think that I mean, as people, I think, where that warm fuzzy comes is like we gravitate towards people that make us feel good. Like, and I think sometimes it's like when somebody puts in the effort and listens to you, or, um, you know, I mean, I think when somebody like puts the effort in, I think, that begins to build that affinity. I think, ultimately what I would say is you have to, if you really want to build a strong friendship, you have to be willing to give more than you take from that friendship. And if two parties are giving more than they take, everybody feels like it just creates a relationship that grows. But I think some of the smallest gestures, the smallest type things, can really, I mean, can be like a pivot point that really changes a relationship, like from a casual relate. And I think when I think about those things in my life that have changed an acquaintance or a casual relationship into somebody I really wanted to become deeper friends with, it's because that there was a moment in time where they really did something unexpected that made me feel like, wow, that person really cares about me, or they really, and that changed my entire perspective of that person and caused me to begin wanting to give that back to them. Like, so I know we're talking about a lot of woo woo stuff and things like that. So I don't want to get like too, but my point is like, there is like, there is a magic to it, and then there are people that I'm close friends with that I can think back at the time where I went from being an acquaintance slash friend to the start of it becoming a deeper friendship. And the reality in those situations is always one party did something unexpected to take the relationship to the next level, and then things sort of kind of took off from there. But you got to be
From
vulnerable to do that, because typically the person that's going to do that doesn't have assurance of that being reciprocated. So
Yeah,
like
there's
you're sort of the person. So we live in a world where nobody wants to go out on the line and create that pivot moment or whatever, because you're putting yourself in a position where it could not be reciprocated, and then that's going to hurt. Instead of you feeling good about it, it's going to hurt. You know.
I think that I've learned, I believe I've learned to take the hurt and take it as this validated that it wasn't that spark, as you said, or it wasn't that person that they didn't
Yeah.
pass the litmus test. Another word you can go look up. What's a litmus test? It didn't pass muster. It didn't. For me, I would build upon what you're saying in that. For me, the relationships that have blossomed, and I'm kind of being spitballing here, but I think what it's been integrity. I've seen the other person that I'm with have a level of integrity that tells me that this is somebody that I like, I could trust, and they're going to do the right thing when it counts as opposed to when everybody's watching. And I can get all that in my gut, my lower
Yeah.
brain, just from an experience. And I don't know if it's, years of being the son of a salesman where I can ask you a bunch of questions where I'm actually
Yeah.
asking you a question, but I'm not actually asking the question. Like that's one of the arts I think I
Yeah.
bring to the table. But that's for me. And I'll shut up here so you can give me your opinion.
No, it's okay. I'm
Integrity,
listening.
integrity. That's what I feel like I want and have had numerous times in my career where I've been given a chance to kids can watch this. Make a shitload of money that I didn't earn for just doing this little thing over here, as Forrest Gump would say, just a little white lie. And yet I never did it because it was
Yeah.
like my dad taught me that like you had to like in the world that we live in with all of this
Yeah.
made up shit, the integrity of the other person is the most important thing.
No, I think all these things are interwoven. And I think that, part of what makes you see somebody else's integrity is how they interact in certain situations. So
Right.
weren't talking about integrity when you mentioned the litmus test or whatever, but I think when you get vulnerable with somebody and they don't reciprocate that, I think that's a sign that like, it may be like not. I mean, I like what Gary Vaynerchuk says is like whenever you do something for somebody or whatever, do it with zero expectation. Like you have to be like, I want to do this for Rob or whatever. The minute you begin to build in your mind that because I did this, they should do this, you're setting yourself up for disappointment
Yep.
every step of the way. So I think that, but where integrity comes into the equation is when you see people reciprocating that and you see the way they respond to you, then you begin to have a level of trust in that person and
Yep.
that begins to build that friendship. So the tough thing is I think or our kids, I should say, live in a generation where I don't think a lot of them want to take that chance because they're like,
Well, well, it's a
they don't want to
it's
go
a
out
tit
on a
for
limb.
tat. It's a tit for tat society because
Yeah.
everything's done, and some people call it virtual signaling, whatever. But because everything's done in public, and this is just in my humble opinion, and all the disclaimers I need to give. It's not. It's my opinion.
Yeah.
It just it's out in public, and so it's like, hey, this person did this for me, so now this person did that for me. So it's like even in the NFTs,
Yeah.
back to relating it to people that are watching this, that I want to hear the message. When I gift you something, there's never this anticipation, expectation, belief that I'm getting something in return. I just want you to be a part of this community that I'm part
Yeah.
with. And so when I see people start to send things back, or there's this tit for tat, it's like, no, 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 I want to squash it quickly. Like that seems like that's become the norm. And it's like, let's not do things, the four agreements. One of them is don't have expectations, which is the same thing that you're saying.
Yeah.
Don't do this with some sort of anticipated benefit coming back.
No, again, not to continually harp on Gary, but one of the reasons I feel strongly as I have done that I do about Gary is, I had the fortune to meet up with Gary right when he was getting out of the wine business and starting to do VaynerMedia, and spend a little bit of time at their headquarters in New York and things like that. And Nick, who's one of Gary's right hand, those guys have done things for me or given me encouragement. And I look at that like this is a one-way relationship. Like they're it's all benefit is flowing to me. Like there's no
Right.
benefit to Gary for helping me. Like I can't do anything to pay him back for like what he has over the years helped me with. So that has created a deep, like affinity in me for Gary because I've seen him on several occasions do things to either encourage me or one thing or the other. And like with no, like I couldn't pay, like there's nothing that he needs that I could pay back. And
I,
that really, to me, even though I wouldn't say Gary and I are friends, like all that, but I will always have an affinity for Gary because he did something for me when there was nothing I can do back. And to
and
get a little
I
bit like, that I'm a Christian. I mean, that's, a lot of the story of the Bible is, Jesus did something for us that we couldn't do anything about. And I mean, I think that's where, when people have a Christian relationship, I think it's based in the fact that God did something for us that we couldn't do for ourselves. And we can't do anything to pay him back. He doesn't need anything we have. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, so.
yeah, I'm with you. I was going to say, and I don't want to cross the God Gary,
No, I'm
and I'm
certainly
teasing.
not comparing Gary to God at
No,
all.
but I wanted to say, and I started to say, because I think what I heard you say and what is important is I've seen you learn this lesson where you've got a guy in front of you that literally gave, and your lesson was there was nothing I could give him in return. So I'm seeing him give this freely. And I've seen him do it. And this isn't to jump on the Gary train, even though I did wear his shirt. I've seen him stand in a line or in a booth for 4 hours, shaking hands and signing cards and doing things for people and just being available and giving his time to
Which is
people.
his
And
most valuable asset. It's every
yes,
one of us. It's everybody on
it
that's listening
is.
to this. It's our most valuable asset.
And most people don't know that. So learn that, understand that when you're not doing something, you are making that decision. And we said we were going to do about 45 minutes. I've got a lot of more notes. I wanted to bring this in for landing softly.
Okay.
I'm learning from the marketing folks. And as you can see, I'm stumbling. I think this was a good first conversation. I really do appreciate you giving the time and the things that we've talked about. I think effort is definitely so back to we talked about there being some magic. I think you would agree there. We've talked about there being a level of effort, but that's not, a guarantee. Like death and taxes are still our guarantees in
Yep.
life. And I've even seen people evade the taxes. So I want to say death is really our only guarantee. But we want folks to know that in order to put yourself in the best position to accept the gift, accept a relationship, to be in the right place at the right time, as they say it, to have that magic moment, be capable, is the flint and the steel need to be near each other. So you need to have, a level of effort, some level of desire, and maybe a view of this as what can I give to this person that isn't me expecting them to give back. And as you said, the litmus test is you start to
Yep.
see how they respond and things of that nature. But we can explore, and I think there's long conversations around the digital versus the in real life and where we could go there. There is this thing I'd love to get your opinion on in a future around PTSD. Like there's 70% of the soldiers return are treated for PTSD, but only 15% see combat. I have a thesis that, we lived in these birthings with other guys. We were always at Chow Hall together. It was, up on the thing. We were in a group. And then we come home and
Yep.
we have the death of the group, which is the 1 bedroom apartment.
Well, think about if you ever looked at, listened to, or read about any pro athletes that have subsequently retired or whatever. More often than not, when they talk to them about what they miss, a lot of them say, I miss the locker room. They don't say I miss hitting a
Winning.
home run. I don't say I miss throwing a touchdown pass or catching a touchdown pass. They say they miss being in the locker room with the
Yeah.
guys. I mean, and that's pretty incredible because I think because then you retire and all of a sudden in a snap of a second, you don't have, I mean, you still know those guys, but you don't have that thing that happens in the locker room as you're getting ready to go out and compete against. So you don't
Yes.
have that anymore. And when you're in the Navy, you're getting ready to go onto the flight deck and work a long day, and everybody needs to be pulling their weight for it to work smoothly. And then all of
Yep.
a sudden you're out of the Navy, and it's like, I don't know about you, but no job I've ever worked since I got out of the Navy had that same feeling. Like, and having, you're like, there's
No.
certain things you can do to get a little bit. It's not that like, hey, whether you and I are buddies outside this room or not, today, we're in alignment. We have a
Yep.
unified goal that needs both of us to accomplish it. And whether we go hang out after work or not, today we're in this together.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, and I appreciate it. These are things that we will talk
Yeah.
deeper through other topics. Happy Thursday. Thank you very
Yep.
much for
It was
being
great
here,
being on
Patric.
board. Like I said, I know we go around, but I think I mentioned to you before we had this conversation. I'm like, man, that's a pretty deep topic. There's a lot of layers to the onion. So I don't think it's like, find meaningful friendship in 4 easy steps. It's
No,
not that.
no, no. And I also don't think that the way I would relate this is to, the people that say that they're proficient in anything, say they put 10,000 hours in. I don't know that I would say it requires 10,000 hours to do this. And you and I have combined well over 10,000 hours of being a friend. And so maybe that's why we're compelled to have this conversation. But until next
I'm
time,
happy to have the conversation. And to me, I feel like I think there's, to your point about PTSD, I'd love to get in that with you because unfortunately, there's a lot of veterans that commit suicide every single day in this country. And there's a lot of youth, there's a lot of kids that are committing suicide. And I feel like, I'm not saying I'm a psychologist, I understand it all, but I got to feel like it's some element of that at the core is that people are just sort of not having significant relationships in their life. And,
I agree.
and I think that, so to me, it's an important conversation, not because, Rockefeller, how do you win friends and influence people? But like literally, this is, I think it plays a part in a lot of people's lives. And I think that a lot of people are suffering because they don't have those connections. And, I think that, as digital as the world gets, I think we still need that. We still need to have at least a small handful or a couple people in the world that we know care about us and we care about them. I mean, and that doesn't need to be 20. That could be 2. That could be 1. But I mean, I think you can't go through life. I mean, I just think there's, like I said, it's a very important conversation on numerous levels. And it's not just about like, wanting another friend. I think it's like literally core to who we are as humans.
As humans, we do seek love, we seek connection, we seek our people. I'm glad you're one of my people, and we will continue this conversation soon. Enjoy
Same.
the rest
Hey,
of your
man,
day.
thanks for the conversation. I love you, buddy.
Love you too, bud. Take care.
All right. Later.
All right. Thanks.